Hi, all. Shawn Tucker joined me on Here's the Problem podcast for a conversation about sports and social justice on the collegiate level. Shawn's list of achievements is impressive. He's the Associate Vice President and Director of Athletics at New Jersey City University. At the time of his hiring, he was the youngest athletics director in the nation. He's also the first Afro-Caribbean American to hold that position at NJCU. Shawn also spent 10 years at Rutgers University as an Associate Athletic Director for Student Development. And as an undergraduate at Rutgers, he was a standout wide receiver. Shawn's a leader and an advocate, and I'm lucky enough to call him my friend. Shawn and I talked about the evolution of social justice movements, particularly the impact that the George Floyd tragedy had on the nation, his university, and also him. We delved into the concept of defund the police and why it ended up being an unfortunate misnomer that created more polarity. We explored the need for systematic change and the necessity of addressing issues on the local level to realize change nationally. And we had an inspiring conversation about the importance of one's life purpose and how harnessing our individual power can drive change as well. I left our conversation far more well-informed and truly inspired. Enjoy. Hey, Shawn, thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, Kelly.
What did college athletics and the platform that you have and social justice look like then? And then I'd like to kind of transition to the now.
Yeah, excellent starter question here. As I look back, just as when I was an 18, 19-year-old coming from the state of Florida, I was born in Chicago, but raised in Parkland, Florida, down there. And at the time, you would say the pulse in our nation when it comes to social issues, while it was probably prevalent, as an 18-year-old, you're just not involved in that, right? You're thinking about your high school, your friends, you're thinking about your sport. It's not until you leave the confines of your normalcy and you're planted here in the state of New Jersey for my state and my example. So when I landed here at Rutgers in 2002, I was blessed with the opportunity to be put into a very diverse culture, all ethnicities, various race, socioeconomic status, also seen in the locker room. And so what I didn't really completely understood while I was down there in Florida, it came all to a head while I was at Rutgers University. And during my time there, you're just really focusing on your academics, your sports, your social life. But I remember there being a specific incident that took place towards the latter part of my collegiate career there, where the dynamic of the war that was taking place in Afghanistan, and then just the frustrations that many people had towards individuals that were going to go fight and not really truly understanding the cause of that. And you'll have people who begin to share their thoughts and opinions and not have true understanding and context to the why. So that was probably my first realization that there's so much more that's at stake. Not to mention the color of my skin, right? And you think about the years of racial tension that has always been there, this underlining narrative that some people are afraid to discuss. Do I call this person African American? Do I call them Black? All those things were a reality for my upbringing coming from Chicago, where predominantly I was an all Black school in which I attended, to Florida, which was probably 80%, 90% white at the time at the high school that I graduated down there at Douglas. So I saw both spectrums of it. And it was very interesting just growing up in those two different realms and then being planted in a place where it was a melting pot of everything coming together.
That's a really good point, because you think about social justice movements and what it's like to be part of any community. We usually talk nationally as almost a monolith, but it's not. And you have three different cities or states that you've lived in, and just seeing the differences between them is really interesting.
Yeah, no question about it. And once you start to add in the international element to it, arriving at Rutgers University and the various demographics that were there and present on my team and in my class, your perspective can only be enhanced. And with that, as we're now dealing with the things that we have now, it really has heightened my thought process of going back and saying, wow, would I have done something different? Now with the understanding that I have now, the level of comfortability to having these conversations as a student athlete in 2002 to 2007, would I have been similar to a Justin Fields or to a Trevor Lawrence on these powerhouse college football programs that says, hey, I demand change. I want to see action. I want to see things taking place. I would like to say I would have, right? But my question is, why didn't I make a stand? Why didn't I say certain things that I felt that was there while they may have not have been a George Floyd incident that took place during my 4 or 5 years there? It was happening, right? And we knew about it, but I wasn't pushed to do it. And those are the questions that I ask myself now, now that I'm in my mid to late 30s.
Those are amazing questions, not only insightful as an individual to kind of self-reflect, but also as a society. And I'll see your questions and raise you more questions. Is it just because of your age and your comfort level as a late teen, early 20-year-old is different than 10 years or 20 years down the road? Is it because it wasn't the social thing to do when we were in college, that there wasn't this uprising and this almost acceptability of raising our voices? We didn't have the social media platforms that we have now. But also, and this is one of the key questions, in terms of the think tank that I would really want to hone in on, is there a structure in place that is prohibiting student athletes from mimicking their professional peers, that regardless of their maturity level, their outgoingness, their knowledge of the topic, that they just cannot share their voice? Those are a lot of questions. I don't know if you could answer all of them. But
I know where I'm going to start. Those are a lot of questions, but I know where I'm going to start. And I'm going to just go right after it. Shut up. Yeah, please. Right. Shut up and dribble was a statement that was made by an individual that has a platform that millions of people watch, but she at the time was expressing the underlying viewpoint that many people, regardless of race, right? I would even say that regardless of race, their viewpoint on athletes, right? That you've been gifted with a gift to compete, to entertain me, but yet you don't have the capacity to communicate through a lens in which I need to hear from you. Like your words are not that valuable.
Do you see the influence of money in athletics in terms of maybe what students can or cannot say if they've agreed to play for a team?
Yeah, I think money is a driver to a lot. The sponsorships at the highest level really impact decisions. I know I was hosting an event and I was looking to have one of my good friends, colleague at an institution in the SEC hop on a Zoom. And unfortunately, she was unable to do it because their institution put a policy in place that everything now needs to be vetted by them first, even if it's you just hopping on and teaching a class for sports and leadership, right? And so when you start to see those narratives, now this is happening in 2020, post all that took place in the summer. So while there has been or organizations that said, hey, we're going to give extra dollars, millions of dollars towards social justice issues and all of that, they are also thinking, well, you know what, this is too much risk for me. So I'm now going to put some preventative barriers in place to not allow you, even though you are your own person, you are still an employee of this institution. So you need to abide by this. We got to feel comfortable enough. So those are the things that you're starting to pick up on to now. It's like each side, each group is trying to reposition themselves. All right, what's our next step? What's our next stance? What's the level of protection? While we agree certain things need to change, we don't totally agree with your mode of communicating that change, right? And I think that's where that you're starting to see that. A great example, polarizing statement that garners a lot of emotion, right? Defund the police, right? This was something that was being professed all across the nation. Personally, not a fan of the word because I think it misses the mark on what was really trying to be said. But that's a great example why corporations will be more mindful of what they connect with or move for, because if there is a statement, a polarizing statement such as that, that alludes to one group being completely ostracized, right? And the real true narrative behind it is reorganizing dollars so that community element of the police is being focused on more so than the other elements of more officers on the streets to arresting individuals. You know, when people get behind the layer of it, oh, okay, that's what you're saying. But now corporations are being more mindful and careful because something of that nature can be that divisive and continues the issues that we have at hand.
Right. And I think where we've gone as a society, you know, the mis and branding aside of defund the police, it does not fully explain what I think the initial intent was. You're forced to choose a side. Exactly. In that instance, you're either for the police or you're against the police. And there's no gray area, which means even the people who would find themselves in the gray area, they're slotted into one side or the other just by force or by what the other side is saying. And it's breaking down our ability to collaborate, to actually talk about the true meaning of issues and possible solutions. And we just keep getting further and further on each side of the divide.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. There's no gray area of compromise, agree to disagree. Let's have a heartfelt conversation. But our entire motive is let's improve, right? If our vision at the end of the day, whether you believe one side or the next side, is to advance the vision, then we should be able to have a healthy conversation. And you should be able to hear why I started a statement that way, then realize in the midst of that, well, I hear you, but I would actually position it this way because it's coming off like that. That was never took place. And I think it's starting to shift because you hear less and less about that statement because I think people realize, wait a second, what are we saying here, right? And has what I wanted to say been lost in the narrative? I'm in a different position than I was when I was at Rutgers. I sense and feel and understand the weight and responsibility of being the voice, being the leader, but not utilizing it in an abusive manner that minimizes or doesn't empower my staff. I live by my core purpose, and my core purpose is to enrich, empower, and develop not just only the student athletes, but my staff, my coaches, so that they can achieve their core purposes. I believe that every individual, including yourself, has been built and designed and has purpose inside of them. And when we can unlock that purpose, that's the driving force that gets us to the place of I'm doing something that's valuable and meaningful. Yeah. And so I've kind of taken on that mantra and that mindset now that I'm in this role, is that I don't want to see anyone on my team ever being in a place where they're floating, feeling like they're not really doing something that's impactful for people. And I tell them about this thing that I really kind of shift and changed my life. I went to a conference a couple years ago, and this gentleman unveiled this 5-step approach to life. And so, you kind of listen. I was standing in the back of the conference, and he talked about how everyone has been built with a purpose. Everyone has a purpose to their life. And I agree with that. But then he shifted to this mantra of saying the very fuel to that purpose is called your passion. It's what gets you up and what drives you. So that's the fuel in your vehicle. And then your assignments, the various assignments, you and I will have hundreds, if not thousands of assignments on our lives. One assignment that I had was working at Rutgers University. My new assignment here is working at NJCU, and I have other assignments. Those assignments are the various pit stops in life. And so we're going to stop here one season. I might be at this assignment for 5 years. I might be at an assignment for 5 months. But every assignment essentially is going to lead us and give us breadcrumbs to the call that's over our life. And so if we start to evaluate everything that we've done in our life, it will start to connect the dots to the overall call over your life. And once we operate in our call, it'll help us lead us to the destination, and which is the final stop when we look at our tombstone and what was written on it, or when everyone has a eulogy on us. Basically, our purpose, passion, assignment, calling will dictate exactly the destiny that we have in our life.
I'd like to thank Shawn for joining me today. If you'd like to see what he's up to, you can follow him at TuckSH4, that's at TUCKSH, the number 4, or www.njcugothicnights.com. I'd also like to thank all those who made this podcast possible, our wonderful production team, the George Milton Group, and my Teen Think Tank Project co-founder, Matthew DeSantis. Most importantly, I'd like to thank you, the listener. Let us know if you're listening. Subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Follow the podcast at @problem_pod. For more information on today's topic, or to find out more about social justice programming for exceptional teens, please follow the Teen Think Tank Project at @teen_think tank. Until next week, I'm Kelly Nagle.